Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a story that really throws a curveball at how we think about existence. It's called Mickey 17. Imagine it's 2050. You're on this, freezing ice planet, but you're not there for the scenery.
No, definitely not.
You're an expendable. Basically, if you die, no big deal. They just activate a new clone of you.
With all your memories supposedly intact. A reset button, like you said.
Exactly, a reset. Wild, right?
It's a stark concept, absolutely. And it immediately makes you think about the science. Could we actually do something like that? And the ethics. My goodness, the ethics.
Totally. So that's our mission for this deep dive.
Right.
We're using the plot summary of Mickey 17 as our map, basically.
Right, to unpack these ideas. Cloning identity, what it all means. So this reprinting process, let's start there. The story says, die, get a new clone, memories back.
Okay.
How does that stack up against, where science is in 2025?
Well, okay, so in the story, new clone, boom, memories are there. Now, if we look at today, we can clone organisms. We all remember Dolly the sheep, right?
Sure, somatic cell nuclear transfer, classic example.
Exactly. You take DNA from a body cell, pop it into an egg cell that's had its nucleus removed. You kind of trick the egg into developing.
So that's just creating a genetic copy, isn't it? A twin, essentially, just born later.
Precisely. It's the biological blueprint.
Yeah.
But the memories,
the
consciousness, the lived experience, that's a whole other ball game.
A massive one. You've hit the nail on the head. Let's call it the biological hardware, the clone itself. We have a proof of concept for that. Rudimentary, but there.
Right. But
the software, all those intricate neural connections, the feelings, the experiences that make you, transferring that.
That feels like pure science fiction still.
It is. Currently. Anyway, we just don't have any mechanism, any understanding, really, of how to map, let alone copy and imprint, something as complex as a lifetime of memories onto a fresh brain. The reprinting in Mickey 17 it's a huge technological leap.
A giant leap. And it makes you think, too, even if they could somehow transfer the memories, what about the body itself? Like, if you keep making copies of copies, does something get lost? Does the genetic code start to fray or degrade?
That's a really sharp point. The plot summary doesn't dive deep into that, but biologically speaking, that's a real concern.
Okay.
Every time you copy DNA, every time cells divide, there's a small risk of errors, mutations, clone that clone. You could potentially see an accumulation of these tiny flaws.
So like genetic drift, but for clones.
Sort of, yeah. It could potentially lead to health issues or instability down the line. It's a plausible biological consequence that the story maybe hints at by focusing on the immediate, expendability aspect.
Which brings us back to the ethics. This whole idea, creating beings specifically designed for dangerous, likely fatal tasks, where death is just part of the job description.
It's incredibly troubling.
Yeah. How are these clones viewed? Are they just sophisticated equipment? Or do they have rights, a moral status?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? The expendable role forces that question right to the forefront. Does being created for a purpose strip away your inherent value?
Especially if they have those memories.
Exactly. If they remember dying, if they feel like the same person coming back each time, aren't they experiencing multiple deaths? It raises just profound questions about their moral standing. Are they being exploited? It seems hard to argue otherwise.
And just think about the psychological impact. Dying, knowing you'll likely die again, but remembering it each time. That sounds, horrific.
Unimaginably traumatic, I'd suspect. Even if the memories are perfectly restored, the experience of dying, the fear, the potential pain that's got to leave a mark.
So is each clone the same person? Or just someone carrying the trauma log of previous versions?
It's complex. Retaining those memories could lead to immense psychological distress, a really fractured sense of self. And the story apparently shows there is controversy about the expendable role within that fictional society.
Which suggests even they aren't entirely comfortable with it.
Right. It underscores these deep ethical worries.
Okay, so this leads us to the really mind-bending stuff, identity. The story has Mickey 17, and then Mickey 18 shows up. They exist at the same time.
Whoops. System error.
Yeah. So are they two different people? Or are they both just copies of the original Mickey Barnes? What even makes you you? Is it the memories, the body, the experiences?
That's the philosophical heart of it, I think. Mickey's situation, having two versions coexist, it really suggests identity might be less about a fixed soul or core and more about a continuous stream of consciousness and experience.
So even though they start with the same memories?
Up to the point of the unexpected survival of Mickey 17, yes. But from that moment on, their experiences diverge. Mickey 17 lives when he should have died. Mickey 18 is created. They now have different paths, different secrets, different immediate goals.
Which makes them distinct individuals.
Arguably, yes. They might share history, but their present and future are now unique. Their perspectives, their motivations will start to differ based on these new experiences.
And the fact that they end up in conflict. Mickey 17 trying to survive, while Mickey 18 represents, well, the correct version, according to the system.
That conflict really throws the value of individual life into sharp relief, doesn't it? When a copy exists, does the original suddenly become redundant? Their struggle highlights that shared origin doesn't mean shared destiny, especially when survival instincts kick in.
It's fascinating that Mickey 17 apparently decides to go back to being called Mickey Barnes, and he destroys the cloning machine.
Interesting.
Does that feel like him trying to, I don't know, reclaim his individuality? Like rejecting the whole expendable copy identity?
That's a really compelling reading of it, yeah. Reverting to the original name, destroying the very means of his replication. It feels like a powerful statement.
Like choosing a single finite life over endless meaningless copies.
Exactly. It could symbolize embracing uniqueness, finitude, maybe even mortality as essential parts of being truly individual, rather than being a replaceable part in a system. A rejection of being disposable.
The story also talks about multiples, other clones existing simultaneously, and the expedition leader, Kenneth Marshall, wanting to eliminate them all.
Right. That paints a pretty stark picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, it suggests a real fear or maybe disgust towards clones in that future society. Like they're seen as aberrations, errors to be corrected.
It points towards a potential dehumanization, certainly Marshall viewing them as a problem, not as individuals with a right to exist. It's a very utilitarian, perhaps even ruthless perspective.
But then there's Naisha, who seems to accept the Mickeys.
And that provides a crucial contrast. Her acceptance shows that empathy, recognizing the personhood despite the origin, is still possible. It's not a universally bleak outlook on clones.
And then there are the creepers, the native life forms on the planet. They apparently recognize Mickey 17, even form some kind of relationship.
Which is another fascinating layer. The creepers, being non-human, might have entirely different criteria for what constitutes life or personhood.
They don't care if he's a clone or the original.
But perhaps not. Their ability to recognize him, interact with him, maybe even form bonds. It challenges our own human-centric biases about who or what deserves recognition and respect.
And the idea that the mother creeper demands a human sacrifice, that adds another complex moral dimension.
It certainly does. It suggests they have their own complex social rules, their own sense of justice or balance, which might seem alien or brutal to us, but it underlines that our definitions aren't the only ones.
So, stepping back from the fiction for a moment, even though Mickey 17's reprinting is way beyond us, it really does resonate with current ethical debates, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Human cloning itself, even just for therapeutic reasons, let alone reproductive cloning, is already fraught with ethical discussion.
And Mickey 17 takes it to such an extreme, it forces you to confront the endpoint of some of these ideas.
Precisely. It mirrors debates we have about genetic engineering, about designer babies, about the potential rights of highly advanced AI, about the use of animals in research. Where do we draw the lines? What responsibilities do we have towards lives we create or significantly alter?
It really puts a spotlight on those questions.
It does. The story uses this sci-fi concept to explore very real, very human anxieties about technology, control, and the future of what it means to be human.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into Mickey 17, we've touched on the, say, speculative science of cloning with memory transfer.
The huge ethical dilemmas of creating expendable lives.
And the slippery, complex nature of personal identity when copies can exist.
It really covers a lot of ground through this one narrative framework.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, while it's set in this specific future, the story acts as a powerful, well, a thought experiment for us right now.
Agreed. It pushes us to think hard about what defines us, what makes a life valuable, and what principles should guide us as science keeps pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So here's something to leave you with. If we ever did develop technology like reprinting, forget the specifics, just the concept of easily replicating a person with memories, how would that change everything?
Everything about life, death, individuality.
Our entire understanding of what it means to be human. What kind of rules, what kind of society would we even need to cope with that?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's definitely something worth mulling over.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gives you some new angles to consider if you revisit the story of Mickey 17.